Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Robert with Sherburne Outdoors. Happy New Year 2025. Can't believe it's 2025 already. In this video, we're going to be comparing three diesel heaters, a cheap one, an economical one, and an expensive one. Now it is kind of the middle of diesel heater season. I've reviewed a bunch of them that I bought one, but some of the manufacturers have sent me some other ones, and we've done quite a few. I decided to pick three that you can get off of Amazon, a cheap one, an economical one, and an expensive one, and just do a comparison. Now these are not going to be huge deep dive videos. I've got videos for each of these that are about 20 minutes long. I'll put some links in and you can look at those, but we'll be reviewing the MaXpeedingrods 5 kilowatt version here that I bought off of Amazon. 89 bucks. This will be our cheap one, and I do mean cheap, very cheap. And our economical one from Hcalory, this is the 2025, as they call it, Toolbox 2, and it's really good. It's $220. It's what I call an economical one. This is kind of my go-to. I like this one. Of all the ones that we had in the economical class, this is the one I really like. It has a lot of features. Obviously, it produces heat. This is kind of my go-to for the remainder of this year, probably next year as well. And then we've got the LF Bros N2 Pro diesel heater. This is the most expensive one. It is 600 bucks. It's got some good features. Probably the best feature I would say it has is it is silent as far as fuel pump ticking noise. I don't know how they did it, but it doesn't make any noise at all. So let's talk about these guys. So these are all-in-one units, meaning that you really don't have to do much to them. They have an output, they have an intake, a lot of them have a handle in different various pieces, and you can either take them out camping or you can set them up for like a workshop. I would definitely recommend taking these two out for camping. I would recommend never taking this thing anywhere. Keep it stationary. These are all Chinese diesel heaters. They're not American made. They are Chinese diesel heaters, as they're called, with made in China. And they have similar products, similar parts, but in many cases they're very, very different. In the end, their entire job is to produce hot air, and they all do that. Do it differently, but kind of the same. Some of them do it better than others, but you know, for the most part, produce that. Some of them do it easier than others as well. For example, it'll probably take us 4 times to get this thing started up, where the rest of these will go smooth. Now, a diesel heater, basically, you're taking, they have a heat exchanger in it, it's heating up, it's using diesel to light up some stuff, and it's producing hot air that comes out. I have used these extensively over the years. I can't remember how many reviews I've done on these. It's been a lot. That's kind of what a diesel heater's for. You can put it up into a rooftop tent very easily in what I do, or you can put it in a garage and wire it in and have the exhaust going out. A lot of people do those, and those are great applications, and it's low cost fuel for being off. Another great thing is you don't have to have these attached to wall power. You can actually do them to a DC power station, or it has AC too, but their power station have remote. They actually do pretty low on the watt consumption, except this guy, the LF Bros. It consumes a ton of power. We'll get into that in a bit. Full disclaimer, I paid for this one. It was 89 bucks. The manufacturers from Hcalory and LF Bros sent me these. So I did not pay for these, but this will be a very honest review on what's good and what's not good, and we'll kind of go through it a little bit. Again, 89 bucks for the MaXpeedingrods 5 kilowatt version. God, that's a terrible name. 220 for the Hcalory Toolbox 2, and then 600 bucks for the LF Bros. All right, here's what we're gonna do for this particular comparison, is we're gonna have each of them up here by themselves. We'll just kind of walk through some of the specs of them. And then we're gonna do a review on low, medium, and high, and on each of those settings, we will look at how loud is it? What is the sound in decibels? Its fan speed. We will do this in miles per hour. I got roasted for you in meters per second. I don't know why in some of the previous videos. And then we'll look at the temps. What's coming out of the heat output right on the heating element there at the end of the heat exchanger. And we will do all of this hooked to an EcoFlow River 3 power station that's 245 watt hours. Pretty simple. All right, let's start with the cheapest one up here. This is the MaXpeedingrods 5 kilowatt, 5 liter diesel heater. And it is cheap. It is our cheapest one, and it is made cheap, and everything about it is cheap. So I paid 89 bucks for this. I've seen it actually for $80. It does have some features with it though. Some of them I could get to work, some of them I couldn't. It's fairly light. It says it's 18.7 pounds. It feels more like 5 pounds when you pull it out of the box. It was so light, everything's so thin. All the plastic is so thin and so cheap. This was actually in 3 pieces when I pulled it out. This front plate was out. I had to kind of put it back together. but I actually was able to get it running. It does have an app, as it says, but I couldn't get the app to work at all. It doesn't have any Fahrenheit Celsius conversion, so you're on Celsius, and it doesn't have an AC, so you've got to be on DC power the whole time. It says it has an altitude mode, and it also has a temperature set. We're just going to do it on low, medium, high, but you actually could do a set point temperature on this. But I tell you what, let's walk around this and then we'll fire it up and go start our test on low, medium, high. All right, again, I've done complete videos on this, but this is just a quick walk around of this. Very cheap, even the stickers are starting to come off. Super cheap fuel cap, it's gonna leak everywhere when we're out and about. It's got a display that's disconnected. It's got a 3-inch outlet. The other two that we have are gonna have 3.5, but this is 3. And then it has everything coming out of the bottom. You've got your exhaust, and then you've got your intake at the bottom, which means it has to be elevated. That's a little different than the new ones. We can see our intake on the back, and then we've got our 12-volt DC line going. I will say one thing's different from the other manufacturers is it does come with a fuse, and so that part is different. All right, let's see if we can get this thing to start up. It's trying. It just turned off. This usually takes like 3 or 4 times. All right, after 3 times, I think it's going to work this time. All right, we've got it in gear mode, or in, you know, basically manual mode, and I've got it on a P1. This display is so poor you can't even see it, but it's starting up. All right, this thing is starting up, but it is bouncing 141, 107, 133, 137. So it's bouncing up pretty heavily. It's been starting up for about 5 minutes so far, and we still don't have any ticking coming off the fuel pump yet, so it's still heating up the glow plug. Very inefficient. All right, after 10 minutes of waiting, this thing still hasn't started. I'm gonna power it off and power it on again and see if I can get it up and running. All right, we are on our 6th time of trying to get this to work. I'm gonna give it 2 more times, then we're just gonna give up. All right, it took 7 times, but it is now starting. You can hear the pump kicking in. It's pulling a lot. We're up in the 140s, 110s, 144. Love this EcoFlow. It doesn't jump out after it hits 140 for a second and not comes back down like the Blue Eddy actually did. So this is pretty nice. Now, we're on the cheap diesel heater, and I do mean cheap. And so that it's taken me 7 times to get this thing started should be really concerning for you. You get what you pay for. But anyway, let's continue with this test. This thing's kicking in. All right, finally got this thing started up. It took 8 times. That is just unacceptable. I mean, especially if you're cold and you're looking for this thing to produce you some heat, that it took that long is insane. Enough of my venting. What you're probably asking, why did I buy this thing? So when I was reviewing the other 2 that we'll get to in a bit, I got several comments telling me, hey, have you tried the MaXpeedingrods diesel heater on Amazon? And they were different people posting it on there, and I was like, I had not. I probably could have got the company to send this to me for free, but I decided to actually test it out. So I bought it, it came, and so now we're testing it out. So anyway, that's how it got here. That's why we're trying it out. It is super cheap. I think it is the cheapest diesel heater on Amazon. So let's start now our test. So this thing's been running for about 15 minutes now on low. We're going to take a sound check, we're going to do a fan check, and we're going to see the temp coming out the end. All right, we're running about 54 on our sound check. And that is the clicking noise. We're at 11.4 miles per hour. We are about 260 degrees coming out of the end of the heat output. All right, that was pretty good for low. This thing's loud though, the ticking noise. So let's move it from low to medium. Right now I'm doing 15 minutes between each of the moves to make sure everything heats up and does all that stuff. So let's go to medium. All right, we are now on medium. And we are averaging about 64. Looks like we're about 27-ish, 26, 27 on the miles per hour coming out of the output. And we are pulling about 300 Fahrenheit coming out of the output, somewhere around there, 300, let's say. All right, let's move this to high, wait 15 minutes, then we'll take the next set of measurements. All right, this thing is doing about 69. Our decibel reading, about 38 miles per hour, which is crazy. That's a lot of air flowing out. And if we look at our temp setting on high, we are about 300 and just call it 50 degrees coming out. So that was a good test with this particular unit, our cheap version, our MaXpeedingrods. God, it's a terrible name. This is what it is. It is just a cheap diesel heater. It's unreliable. It's okay. It's got heavy ticking on the lower ranges. On high, it's not so bad. Let's put this one down. Let me get the Hcalory Toolbox 2 set up, and we'll move on to our next piece. Okay, we are up on the Hcalory Toolbox 2, and it is what it says. It looks like a toolbox. It does have one nice thing. It's very easy to get inside. You can open this up. You got access to your diesel, see what you're at. We also can change out anything so we need to on the bottom. You can see the heat exchanger sitting underneath of this plate. And we got the diesel heater. Hey, again, there's a full video up in the upper right-hand corner here where you can go and look at everything about this. It's got the exhaust up front. I get a lot of negativity on this exhaust up front and some of my comments from previous videos. I actually use a right-hand turn or a right up turn to go to the tent. So these two never really are any effect on me. Got some vents here on the side. We've got on our back side here, we've got our intake tube. We also got our blower intake. We've got the display on the back. I do like this. Some of the other units have been having them on the top, and I do not like that at all. We got our DC connection coming to our EcoFlow River 3, and let's go ahead and fire this thing up, see what it does. All right, this thing is going through its startup phase. This is the Hcalory Toolbox 2. One thing I did want to note is this has a great mobile app. They didn't sub this out to someone else. They built their own app in-house. Again, this one is the $220, what I would call economical one. I think this is the one, of all three on here, this is probably the one I would buy the most for my personal use. It's the one I actually use the most when I go out, is this particular one. This mobile app is really good. If we take a look here, we can do a lot of things. You can see it's heating. We're in what's called a gear state right now. Hey, pardon any noise around me. My neighbors are getting their roof replaced on the other side, and kids are playing in the yards next door. It's New Year's Eve, what can I say? But right now we're in a heating mode. It's starting its cycle up. You can kind of hear the pump just a little bit. This one on low, you can hear the pump just a little bit, but I can't hear it when I'm out camping. So I have it underneath the tailgate, so I'm not too worried about any of that. So inside of our app here, we can do lots of things from turning it up and down. I operate everything on here. It does have the display on the back. I don't ever use it. What I love in the upper right is that I can come in here and make some changes. If I want to, I can very easily go from temperature to Celsius. And this operates on a global stage where we do particular things in United States with Fahrenheit and feet. You know, obviously on previous diesel heaters, even the ones on this table, you can't get them to this particular settings. And so we have to deal with things that were uncommon, you know, not common for us. So I love the versatility of this app. It's got altitude compensation. It will automatically do everything you need it to do. And then I can very easily at the bottom switch mode changes. I can go from gear to temperature if I want to. This does have a temperature sensor in it, so if you want to set it, like go to 70 degrees, and you've got this unit sitting inside and maybe you've got the exhaust going outside, it will operate like that. Today we're just doing it, we're testing from low, medium, high, and right now we're on an H1. We'll go all the way up to an H10 here in a little bit for high, and we'll use H5 for medium. But this is our app, and we can do other things. We can build scenes in the bottom. It's fairly simple to use, but it connects right up with Bluetooth, no problem. And this is a major difference between this one and the other ones. I can't believe, we'll get into it in a second, but the $600 one doesn't even have an app. What is that about? But anyway, so this again is the Hcalory Toolbox 2. There'll be links in the bottom to all of these products on Amazon. You can go and check them out. But let's let this thing warm up, and let's take some readings. Okay, we're on low. We're running about 58. Fan is about 17-ish, 18-ish. Let's just call it 18. You know, it's not that hot in here. Only about 180 degrees, 183. Let's call it 180. Okay, let's move it to medium. All right, it's very interesting. This thing doesn't sound that much different on medium than it does on slow. If we look here, we are at about 65. About 28, 28.5, somewhere in there. Took a temperature reading. We are about 255, 270, 267. Let's call it 270. All right, let's move it to highs. All right, on high, we're running about 69. Running about 36 miles per hour. Sitting about 300-ish, somewhere in there. So that is hot. Finalized for the Hcalory 3. We'll see what all of them look like in a second, but you know, it's pretty quiet, very little ticking, and it produces a lot of heat, and it's nice. It's easy to use, love the mobile app. So I tell you what, let's shut this thing down and let's move over to the LF Bros N2 Pro, the $600 one, and see how it fares up against the rest of it. All right, we're at our last test sequence now on the LF Bros N2 Pro, $600 diesel heater. Now I will tell you, this is a nice heater. I did a camping trip recently. I did a video on it, got down to 20. I was completely toasty and I didn't hear a thing. Now this thing is it is sturdy. Unlike the MaXpeedingrods 5 kilowatt that we tested earlier that was so flimsy, and this thing's built like a car. I mean, it is solid. It comes in at roughly 24 pounds, 5-liter tank, 5 kilowatt exchanger or diesel engine built into it. No app. So for all this money, you don't get an app. You can't change it from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Again, here's a longer video that I did just on this not too long ago. Goes into all the in-depth pieces and parts of it. With that said, it does have some things that are nice about it. It has this display that's remote, and it is solid too. Unlike the MaXpeedingrods one, this thing is solid. You can put it up in your tent. It's got a temperature sensor with it. And so it doesn't have to be attached to the unit. Still use it in just your basic everyday mode, but you can do it that way as well. Gas cap. All the other gas caps, when you're sloshing around everything, you have to put a piece of tape on them because it'll just leak out. This one has an industrial grade one. Not really an industrial grade one, but more automotive, where it seals on the inside. And so I took it out and we went deep. Not a single drop came out of this thing. Has some other things. It has a muffler that is very different than the other ones. It curves up into here. You can't see through it, and it's really quiet. Also, they don't have you put it at the end of the tube. They have you put it right next to the unit. I tell you what, let's look around and then we'll kick this off. So again, it's a very nice unit. It's very compact. It's very small. It's very dense, and it's very expensive. It has detachable cables up front that you put in and you crank down. It's got a display here. You can see where you're at on your 5 liters. We're a little below 3. Here is your exhaust off the side. And notice how it does have a thing. It looks similar to the other ones, but it's not. It has a honeycomb in it, and it's really quiet. On the back side here, we do have our connections. We have our input for our fan here. Also, this is where you have your fresh air input as well. And then we have a power supply coming over. And that is basically it. It's in this Darth Vader color. This is aluminum versus steel, and it's still super heavy. So let's go ahead and get this thing fired up. All right, so this is a pretty nice bright display. Gives you a little bit of information about it. We're on a P1.4, which is the lowest setting we can go. We're gonna start off on a low, and it's cranking up. You can kind of hear it a little bit. While this is still starting up, this does come with some nice adapters, both for the return, but also for the output that fit right on here snugly too. Comes with this nice case to put everything inside of. It actually did come with ducting as well for both sides. So I don't know if that's $600 worth of extra stuff, but I mean, it's nice to have inside of there. Love the bag. Actually, that got used heavily on the last trip. All right, we're gonna try and start this LF Bros using the front DC adapter going straight into the cigarette lighter. It's bouncing around 100, 120, 130. I mean, so far so good. All right, now that this is stabilized, we're pulling like anywhere from 6 to 7 watts, nothing much. Sometimes it'll spike up a little bit, but I did go ahead and put this output on here just so you can kind of see what it looks like as it's throwing out, and then we got our cables underneath it here. I love these quick disconnects. This is some of the niceties that you get with a $600 unit, but it's still $600. So it's about 58. One thing I want you to notice is there is no ticking. On low, nothing. About 20 miles an hour coming out on low, give or take a couple, 275. So pretty warm actually for low. All right, on medium we're pulling about 30 to 35 watts. Kind of in that 72 range. About 39.2 to 40. we're about 340 degrees on medium. So it's a little louder than the rest of them, but it's not ticking. It's no ticking at all. It's just blower noise or white noise, which I actually like while I'm sleeping. I don't like the ticking. So let's crank this thing up to high and see where we end up. All right, we are running about 50 watts or so. It keeps kind of pumping around that. We're about 75 or so. Running about 45. Whew. All right, all the testing is done. Holy smokes, it's a lot colder today. It's in the low 40s than it was yesterday when we started this, when it was in the high, or kind of mid 60s. I realized it was New Year's Eve and it was kind of off, but it's cold again. Anyway, hey, this was kind of enlightening to me. I was a bit surprised. I thought this thing was louder than it was. It turns out it just is ticking on our cheap model here, and the other ones had some different results. But if we kind of look at the results here, I did pull some data from the test that I done on the in-depth videos on each of these. You can see where they run on low and high temperatures for going through an entire tank of fuel. The MaXpeedingrods, it went 28 hours, 28 and a half, and 10 and a half basically on 5 liters. The Hcalory went 50 hours. Now, it does have a 6-liter tank, and the LF Bros went 31 hours. Some of the things that stand out on here for me was the LF Bros. Even though it doesn't have any ticking, it was the loudest one on here of all of these. Other things that stood out to me is how much heat the LF Bros is putting out. I mean, it runs hot. The other thing that stood out to me on here was the fan speed. This LF Bros does put out a lot of volume of air. And anything else that stood out to me? Not really. I think this Hcalory, it doesn't burn near as hot as the rest of them as I thought, and that's probably why it can go 50 hours on low. I'm not exactly sure, but it does. But it puts out plenty of heat, especially in my application for a rooftop tent. So that's kind of the review on these. This wasn't meant to be a long video because I have other videos on these individually, but just comparing a cheap, an economical, and an expensive. And what would I do? If I had to buy one of these, would I buy the 89, which I have already bought? I would never buy this again. This thing is junk. Maybe if I'm putting it like right by a garage and I'm not doing anything, I'm never going to touch it again. But it is so difficult to get started. It took me 8 times to get this started. On here, my favorite is this, actually, the Hcalory 2. I like the app. I like the accessibility. I like everything you can do with it. It's easy to use. It doesn't use near as much power. It has plenty of airflow and heat. It's $220. So this is the one that I would recommend. Now, do I like the 600? You bet I do. It is quiet. There is a slight ticking on kind of the low end for this Hcalory Toolbox 2. A little more than I thought there was. I don't notice it when I'm camping. I have it underneath the tailgate, so I don't notice it at all. But it is there. There is zero, and I do mean zero, on this LF Bros N2 Pro. Just zero ticking. It's just super quiet. If we look here, here's what all of them compared on low. Here's all of them compared on medium. And here's all of them compared on high. You can kind of hear the differences. I did notice that there was a lot more background noise when we were doing the MaXpeedingrods one. A lot more wind. I'm not sure what was going on. A lot of wind was coming in, bringing in this cold air. But anyway, that's kind of an analysis of all of these guys. So I think this is probably my last video for diesel heater season as we move into 2025, get more back to what we've been doing. But so with all that said, I think my overall recommendation is the Toolbox 2 from Hcalory. This is the one I like the most. It's the most versatile one for me. Thank you so much for taking the time to kind of watch through this. This turned out to be a little bit longer video than I thought it was going to be. Hey, if you got any value out of this, please click that like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click that bell to be notified when we got new content out. Again, I am Robert from Sherburne Outdoors. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great day.